Okay guys, I'm doing a hive inspection here. The camera that I got, new camera, and I love the way it takes video, but the audio is just horrible. So I'm actually doing a voiceover. I could add bee sound effects later. I don't know. But I'm recording this actually in my living room, and just trying to go over it. But today, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing an inspection of this hive. And I'm going to I want to take a look at what's going on with the brood box I added about a week and a half ago, and I'm installing a screen bottom board that I got yesterday, just because it's been so hot here in Ohio. This allows me the option to close it off on cooler nights and keep it open when it's 90 some odd degrees. It is 90 degrees at about 11 o'clock in the morning when I was filming this, and my goodness, I was drenched in sweat by the end of this inspection. So I'm taking the top cover off here, the inner cover. The top cover, I had put a frame or a entrance reducer on there to keep it kind of open. This is the top box. And this is the box that I installed about a week and a half ago. All these frames were completely empty. It was just basic blank plastic frame or foundation. I also put these beetle traps in there, and didn't find any beetles, so I'm not really too concerned about them. I actually removed, I think, one or two of them just because they're not necessary. If they're not there's no beetles in the hive, then not necessary to keep a trap in there. So the first couple of frames, not much going on, but as you could see, I pulled out this frame, and this one they're drawing it out, and there's some nectar being stored in them. On the opposite side, not really drawn out as much, but that's okay. They're working hard on it, and they've accepted the second brood box, and they're moving up into it. Let's see, this frame, as you get closer to the middle, they start filling them up more. So you can see this frame is completely drawn out. There's some burr comb on the bottom. There's, I think, just nectar on this one. And when I flip it over, you'll be able to see, yep, there's, again, they're just drawing it out. So it takes bees about 2 weeks to fully draw out one frame, so it takes some time for them. Obviously there's a lot of them, so they've been working hard. Now I want to say it was this frame or the next frame. I think it was the next frame, but this frame has honey on it, capped honey, and if you look at the bottom of the frame, you can see there's capped brood. So there's capped brood in there, and there was some larvae in there that hasn't been capped yet. So the queen actually did make her way up into that second box and laid some eggs. So we have some capped brood in that second brood box, which was the one of the reasons why I added that brood box, because they were running out of room in the bottom one. When they add too much honey to the cells that they've created on the frames, they become honey bound, which means that they don't have enough room for the queen to lay any more eggs, and they'll produce a new queen, and they'll eventually swarm. Now this frame here is pretty much all honey. In fact, every other frame that was in the top super brood box was pretty much all capped honey, and some nectar, with that exception of the other one. This frame, I want to say, weighed probably a good 6 or 7 pounds of just honey. As you start moving towards the end of these of this one particular box, what happens is that they draw out the frames farthest away from the center of the hive last. So this one's drawn out. You have some honey capped on there, but the next three or four frames, they're just starting to draw out, which is good. In about a week or two, I'll go back in there, and you can see there's 4 spots where they started drawing out the comb. In a couple weeks, I'm going to go back and I'll probably end up putting a medium honey super on there with a queen excluder, which means that she won't be able to go up, and it'll just be exclusive honey that they're storing in that top box. Now that's another beetle trap. Again, there was nothing in that beetle trap. I didn't find anything, and that frame is just completely empty. So I'm gonna put this back together again here, and I'm going to remove the top box. No, I think is that the last frame? That might be the last frame. I'm going to take the top box off, and we go to the bottom box here. Alright, so this is the bottom box. This is the original brood box that I had, giving them a little smoke so that they can get off and calm them down a little bit. So the most important thing that I was looking for here was I wanted to make sure that there was no queen cups or swarm cells in here. I was also looking for the queen the entire time. I did not find her, but I did find a lot of cap brood, a lot of larvae, a lot of eggs. So I know she's still laying. She's still in there somewhere. And they have not reached a point where they need to swarm or they need to get out or split the hive. I think that was the trap that I removed. I just removed it from the bottom one. There's just really no need. There was nothing in it. So no need for the beetle traps. They seem to be doing a pretty good job of keeping the hive in order. So propolis was pretty bad today, plus it was warm. They work with the propolis a lot. That's the wax they produce. So this one you can't really see what I'm doing because I'm out of frame, but I'm examining all these frames to see what's on them. I don't think I held anything really up to the camera too much, but you're seeing a lot of I'm seeing a lot of cap brood. I'm seeing a lot of honey and a lot of nectar and a lot of burr comb. So burr comb is what's on the bottom of the frames. That's what I'm scraping off now. On the bottom of the frames, they have that burr comb. Now I toss it to the side, but I don't leave it in the area of the hive, only because it contains honey, nectar, and in some of them larvae. And I know it's sad, it sounds bad, but the larva that is laid in the burr comb tends to be drone larvae, and in the middle of July, drones are not necessary anymore. The virgin queens have already mated. They're now full-fledged queens, and the mating season for the bees is pretty much over. There might be some going on, but not a whole lot. That tends to happen in the spring. So we can get rid of some of the drone brood. They're not necessary to the productivity of the hive. So anyways, like I was saying, I get rid of the some of that. This is the laying pattern. If you look at this laying pattern, quite exquisite. You can see all the little black holes in between all the cap brood. Those are called heater cells. And what those do, if it drops down too cold at night, the bees can actually go into those heater cells and shake. And when they shake, they warm up the larvae around them in that particular area. So those cells are actually left blank on purpose. So that was a beautiful frame of cap brood right there. my smoker was going out on me a couple of times. It's kind of hard, you know, you have a lot to work with when you have two boxes, and that's burr comb on top and some bridge comb. And what bridge comb is between the two frames, the bees will produce comb and cap it off completely, so it bridges the two frames together, and it becomes a problem when trying to work with these frames because they don't push together very well once they're taken apart. Alright, so again, I'm looking, I apologize, this is a real bee inspection or hive inspection, so I wasn't really playing for the camera too much, but a lot of cap brood on this particular frame and tons of that burr comb on the bottom. You can see it's older burr comb, and those tend to be a drone larva if they have any larvae in there. So that I'm gonna have to get rid of just to make the make everything a little bit easier to work with in the future. So here they don't like the brush very much, but you just brush them off and scrape it down. Then all that wax from what they produced, I just kind of leave it in the area, but I do get rid of it. Like I said, predators are drawn to the honey and the larva and what have you, so you don't want any predators coming towards the hive, especially at night when they're more dormant. Now you can see on top all this burr comb. Now on the top burr combs, it's usually honey that's there. So I don't like getting honey on my gloves because then the bees go crazy for it. And then I'm chasing bees off of my gloves. And so the rest of these frames, basically, most importantly, what I'm looking for here is, like I said, those swarm cells or queen cups. Also scanning, looking for the queen. You can see a lot of cap brood. That's older. That's older drawn comb there. You can tell by the darker color. But lots of cap brood. I think out of all of these, there was maybe, I'd say about 6 or 7 frames that had cap brood on it. Alright. And this is some of the that's some of the bridge comb that I was talking about that you got to take off. You might see I have looks like a watch on my wrist. That's actually a remote control for this camera, so I could turn it on and turn it off without having to touch the camera, which is a nice little feature. Again, I just, for whatever reason, that the audio on it is just horrible. You can't understand anything that's going on. It's muffled, very muffled sound. So I don't know if I'm going to have to get an external microphone for it or what, but it just didn't work for this type of production. Might be good for like action shots and stuff like that, but you can see all the comb that's coming off. So the rest of the inspection pretty much goes the same way. You know, I'm looking for those swarm cells. I'm looking for the queen. I'm looking at the health of the capped brood and how much honey is in these particular cells. I'm wiping or removing burr comb, bridge comb. So I'm going to speed this up a little bit, and you know, the inspection pretty much goes the same for every single frame. You take it out, you inspect both sides. You're looking for you know, all those things. Removing the comb. This is managing your bees. This is making sure that they have a proper place to live and to be. No pun intended. Okay, and here you can see I'm putting the hive back together again, slowly putting the frames back in exactly the way I had them, trying to keep the bees at bay, pushing them as tightly together as possible. Again, they're after all that honey that's on top, and that's why they're bearding there like that. Now, here's where I replace the bottom board or the baseboard with the screen board. Now, that hive probably weighs a good 70 pounds or so, and it is glued to the bottom with propolis. So, just getting the whole thing up was quite an adventure. Now, all the bees that are out, they'll be fine. So I put this screen baseboard in, so that's going to give them a little bit more air, a little bit more ventilation. Try to get it as evenly as possible, so that it was the way that it was. And then again, trying not to squish anybody, but some casualties are inevitable, unfortunately. So after the baseboard was put on, I put the second box on. I'm just trying to clean up around the hive and make sure it's aligned properly, and put the inner cover back on. Then I had that entrance reducer just as a buffer to kind of ventilate the top, and strap it all back together again. And that's how you do that. The baseboard, the original one, you could see all the bees crawling all over it. I just left that out in front of the hive, and they make their way back into the hive. You can see they're bearding on the sides. That's from honey that was on the side, and they're just trying to get all that cleaned up and back into the hive. Thanks for watching, guys.